Então, muito boa tarde e bem-vindos à segunda sessão da segunda edição das Álvaro Siza Talks. Antes de mais, queria advertir uma pequena questão. Acho que toda a gente sabe, mas a exposição vai ficar aberta até às 9 horas e também para aqueles que vão estar amanhã na Siza Talks, com o bilhete da Siza Talks também podem visitar a exposição Álvaro Siza em Disciplina e, portanto, é importante só lembrar isto. Também queria aproveitar para agradecer mais uma vez à Fundação Serralves por o apoio a Siza Talks, evidentemente também ao diretor do Museu, o Filipe Derrenho, que tem apoiado com entusiasmo as talks e, evidentemente, um recorde também para a Suzanne Cotta, que iniciou o projeto comigo. A Fundação, o Prémio Akan, the Akan Award for Architecture, e particularmente o Farrokh Derakhshani, que esteve connosco ontem e tem apoiado também muito generosamente com os seus conselhos entusiastas, mas também financeiramente a edição das talks. Ao Comitê Científico, que para além do Filipe, do Farrokh e do próprio, está o Álvaro Siza e que também está a se desculpar porque está um pouquinho doente, mas ele gostava de estar aqui connosco, e o Eduardo Soto de Moura, que vai estar connosco na terça-feira, vai fazer a apresentação do Jacques Herzog. E, finalmente, também, evidentemente, agradecer a equipa de Serralves, particularmente a Sónia Oliveira, que tem estado a coordenar estas duas primeiras edições da Siza Talks com grande habilidade e grande jeito, e a sua equipa, com a Isabel Keller e toda a parte, a Denise Polini, que também está a dar apoio, com a Diana, e a toda a equipa, a Carla Pinto, e toda a equipa, também não sei todos os nomes, mas evidentemente toda a equipa também do auditório. Hoje vamos ter uma sessão de arquitetura ibérica, e vai ser arquitetura ibérica não só porque temos dois escritórios, dois ateliês da Península Ibérica, portanto também da nossa jangada da pedra, mas também arquitetura ibérica como presunto ibérico, não é? Também uma arquitetura de grande qualidade. E, portanto, vou passar para o inglês, dado que os nossos convidados, a tradução simultânea, os nossos convidados entendem melhor o inglês. Vou passar já para o inglês para fazer a apresentação de Arquitetos e Álvaro Sinkevich. I was just saying that I'm very happy to be introducing the second session of the second edition of the Siza Talks, and as I said yesterday, and I would like to insist for those of you who were not here yesterday, that having a second edition is really important, because organizing an event, a single event, is relatively easy, but thinking of a second speaks of continuity and speaks of the commitment, and I'm very grateful that it seems that it's only a second edition, but it seems that it is beginning to consolidate as an event that hopefully will be one more of the treats and more of the reasons for a group of people, not only architects, to yearly come back to Serralves for the discussion around contemporary architecture and topics and themes that are, in a sense, found and valuable to Siza's work. Today we have Roger Tudó from Arquitetos. Arquitetos is an architecture office, obviously, formed by 4 people: David Lorente, Josep Ricard, Xavier Ros, and Roger Tudó. They are based in Sabadell, near Barcelona, and they all studied in ETSAB with a V, not a B. It's the Escola Tècnica Superior d'Arquitectura del Vallès. The other school, there are 2 schools depending from the Polytechnic University of Catalonia, that of Barcelona and that of El Vallès. And I'm insisting on that because there's specificities, although we can say that we can talk about lots of things about. I'm very uncomfortable to talk about Spanish architecture, I'm very uncomfortable to talk about Catalan architecture, and so, but still there's some commonalities, but there's also some specificities. And it's true that the people that were educated in the School of El Vallès, which is the one in which Roger and his partners were trained, so that they were lucky to start with, that they were not taught by me, so that's one of the things, because I was teaching in the other school. And they had a very strong, we were discussing last night, it has specificities. They always look at what they were missing, but we always look at what they had. And I think they had a very strong education in tectonics, in construction, in an understanding of how the invention of architecture has to do with the invention of its construction. And I think that's something which is very strongly embedded in their education. Roger and Josep teach design and construction courses at the TSAF, while Xavier teaches design at the Barcelona School of Architecture. And I insist also on this idea of design, that they teach also sometimes construction, some of the members of the team. As also, it's important to know, and that's a footnote, that Iñaki started teaching construction and not design, and Álvaro Siza actually only taught construction at the School of Architecture at the FAUP, at the Faculty of Architecture of Porto. So it's also important that this connection to the materialization of architecture has to do with a willingness to understand the, as I was saying before, I don't know whether I'm going to be repeating myself, but almost the importance of thinking of the translation of drawing to building as an important way of understanding the invention in architecture. I just want to say a couple of words about architects. On the one hand, I think they're very suited to the topic of these talks, the notion of matter, material, materiality, and the materialization of architecture, so these conversations on matter. It's quite clearly a practice that, in my view, has been trying to explore and exhaust the possibilities of conventional materials and techniques. Some critics, they will begin to have a little bit of a presence for the past few years in architectural press. And they've been often qualified as arte povera or architecture povera, something like that. I think that's a big misunderstanding, or at least a misreading. And I think that their choice for certain types of materials has nothing to do with an aesthetic choice, but more of an ethical choice and a choice for consistency in the work. I would say that if I may, that if there's something that I could actually bring close to architects, would be almost the notion that Jasper Morrison and Naoko Futagawa put together in the supernormal. I think there's something about this understanding of design, for those of you who are familiar with that notion, has to do with looking at almost everyday objects and then trying to design a chair that is a chair and looks like a chair, but it's a slight improvement for the notion of the chair, or a dish, a plate, that it's a plate and looks like a plate, but actually addresses specific problems, and there's a small contribution which is almost unnoticeable. And I think there's something that we can find sometimes in the work of architects, and for me it's one of its main reasons for being attractive and being, at some extent, new and relevant to contemporary architecture. Just before moving to Iñaki and Renata, just say that last night we were talking about, with Marina Tabassum, about light being also a construction material. I would say that perhaps what they have in common, architects and Ábalos and Sentkiewicz, would be a very wide understanding, or an understanding of energy as a construction material, and I think that's something important. I'm going to introduce both of you. I didn't tell you that. I think that's, and then you give the two talks almost in a row, and then at the end, I think that will be more efficient, that we have questions and answers together, and perhaps a bit of a discussion, so that I think it's going to be a more agile and more intense session. Renata Sentkiewicz was born in Kolo, if I pronounce it well, in Poland. Renata belongs to the same generation as our architects. She received a Master of Science by Krakow Polytechnic School of Architecture. And she immediately after moved to Madrid, where she started collaborating with Ábalos and Herreros, and eventually became an associate architect, and eventually co-founder and partner of Ábalos and Sentkiewicz with Iñaki Ábalos. Renata is a member of Zero Energy Alliance and professor of the Laboratorio de Técnicas de Paisajes Contemporáneos. And she's been, amongst many other things, visiting critic at the Harvard Graduate School of Design, and currently teaches at the Madrid School of Architecture. Iñaki Ábalos is full professor of architectural design at the Madrid School of Architecture, and professor in residence at the Harvard Graduate School of Design, where he served as chair of the Department of Architecture. We have two chairs here. We have the former chair and the present chair. We're quite lucky to be in such good company. And he has been visiting professor at Columbia University, diploma unit master at the AA, at the Architectural Association in London, and many other things that I'm going to save, so anyone can access that. But I would like to say that Iñaki has been, I think, he's not dead yet, I would say. He has been recently operated on and is getting old, but I think Iñaki has I don't know how to reformulate that now. Iñaki has had a very strong practice, which has been extremely influential, first with Juan Herreros, Ábalos and Herreros for many years, and since 2006, I believe, with Renata in practice. But I would say that his influence is even stronger as an educator, and that's something I would like to highlight. Iñaki has been extremely generous as an educator, and I think that many people now in their 40s and even 50s almost now, and definitely 30s and 20s, have had the privilege of being taught by Iñaki, but not been taught in the sense that he's been passing knowledge, but he's been part of a large conversation, and he's been extremely generous in providing opportunities for other people to begin teaching, to have whatever. And I think in that sense it's extremely clear in the Madrid School of Architecture, but it's clear in many other places around the world where he's been present, and that's something that I would like to highlight, because I think that's his major contribution, at least at the moment, and that's something I thank him from, and that's something that I would actually, to some extent, I think that I benefit from. Lastly, I also wanted to say that he's written a few books, including, I mean, there's many interesting ones, but I still think that La Buena Vida, The Good Life, which actually there's a translation in Portuguese, A Boa Vida, which is still I think it's a book that still teaches us how the connection between certain ways of living and certain ways of thinking continues to be extremely relevant. So you want to hear Roger, Iñaki, and Renata, so please join me in welcoming Roger Tudó. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, for these beautiful words, and thank you to the Serralves Museum for inviting us in this fantastic panel. It's an honor for us. I will try to explain our practice, trying to explain some different approaches related to matter. So trying to explain probably our kind of conversations with matter. This is going to be a couple of projects, and each project is connected to one of these, is especially connected to one of these approaches, but probably you can mix them all together, because you will find that something that it's explaining at the beginning maybe returns later. So I will start with this idea of fundamental matter. For us, we really like to, as Carlos was explaining, we really like to use these very basic elements that are defining construction and buildings, like walls, windows, roofs, very basic elements. And we are very interested in how we connect these basic elements and how we try to increase his potentials of functions, trying to extend these elemental things to something that is powerfully connected to the behavior of the building. So when these things are happening, then we feel like the building becomes, or these elements become fundamental, because they are. Sorry? Okay. May I start again? No. So that's what I mean connecting with behavior. I'm talking about how a wall could be also structural, how a wall could be connected to the real comfort, how a window is showing or creating a different exchange between indoor and outdoor. So this is the first project. It's a house that we built some years ago. It's a really cheap, low-cost house, very simple, in a very generic and not really beautiful plot, but with a very strong characteristic. It's a triangular plot. So the building starts with this very easy decision to trying to extend the building in the it's okay. Trying to extend the building to the maximum footprint that it's allowed. So the building is a triangular construction inside the triangular plot. Very, very basic. And the idea of this project is also something that it's usual, that in our houses it's just trying to organize spaces with the structure. Very, very basic as it used to be, especially in Barcelona. Usually all the buildings, all ancient buildings are masonry buildings with structural walls that are defining the structure. So we are always trying to reproduce this idea, different spaces surrounded by something that becomes fundamental. This is not only a division between two spaces, this is the structural element that is standing the building. So these very basic windows and doors, it's creating this, this is not working, it's, okay. So the space is very basic and defined with this matter, this amount of bricks that are showing us that we are surrounded by something that is real. These bricks are doing something necessary. You cannot remove this. This is a real wall. And on the other hand, we also discovered that these elements are not only connecting with the behavior that we can understand as a visual experience. This is also surrounding us in a haptic way. So we can feel that these walls are not only structural, they are also a kind of a thermal storage system. So because of the mass and the thermal mass and the porosity of these bricks that are really the cheapest bricks that we have in Barcelona. So finally, all these walls are creating the stabilization and the humidity regulation that the house needs. So there is something invisible here that you cannot perceive as a picture, but you are surrounded by something that is creating your home, because it's the temperature and also all this perception of gravity. So from outside, the house is very simple. It's twisting the same brick, and it's working as a sun protection with a double ventilated facade. Very simple details. And it's so basic like that. So everything is trying to become fundamental. So the next approach is the idea of how we are understanding architecture as something that it's artificial and it's always transforming sites, and it's obviously made with kind of dead matter. But we understand architecture as a support of life, and in this position, we are especially interested in trying to introduce some extra life in buildings, and that's obviously with human use, but we are also very interested on using plants and vegetation, trying to introduce the evolution of this site, of this of the place. So maybe we can understand this a little bit with this project. It's a student residence. This is a building that we built in front of our architectural school. It's where the students of architecture are living. It's a building that it's built with this three-dimensional element. It's a kind of a concrete container that is produced in a factory. Usually this is finished with plasters and other materials, but we found it really interesting like that. So that the unit of this housing building is going to be more or less that space. But this is produced in a factory, and then you have to build it in the place. So here came the main concept of the project. The idea was to use this big three-dimensional element as a kind of big brick, and producing big walls with this element. So instead of having one big building here that was, well, maybe it's this, that it's not, no? Sorry. So instead of doing a higher building, we divide the building, producing this space inside. So these bricks, really big elements, are building two walls that are closing a garden inside. So this is the primordial decision of this building. Wow. So the project, it's again very simple. It's producing a claustro, like in a monastery. So you have individual rooms with the basic bathroom and kitchen, and in the middle there is like the big common space that it's like the living room for everybody, and it's a garden. And this claustro is divided in three patios. Wow, three patios divided by the stairs. So what? No. So that's what's happening inside, and that's why it's so important for us how matter can be alive inside. So vegetation, plants are introducing the evolution of this site. It's connecting for us something that it's dead to the earth, to the sun, to the water. So it's growing, and it's introducing time and evolution. So we think that it's much more powerful, this garden, nowadays. But it's really the heart of the project. And inside you see these concrete containers, obviously full of life. This is human life. But also you can see in the windows that plants appears again. This is the sun protection that was at the beginning. Now it's full of plants. The leaves are falling in winter, so the sun can come inside, and in summer it's protecting and refreshing, what is really important in Barcelona. So this is, as a primordial decision, this is connected to the resources. So the idea is that this big and large housing building has a kind of tank on the roof that is collecting the rain water. You know that in Spain it's raining a few times, but a lot, too much. Then we have too much water that it's lost in 5 minutes. So the idea of this building is to reduce the speed of this water. So we keep it on the roof, and this water is falling very slowly by this piece of steel that it's twisted. And this is introducing water to all the peripheric of the building, and it's also going to a tank that it goes to the center later. So by gravity, it's and by himself, it's just introducing the element of the plants. So the plants are growing, and nowadays it's something like that. So life, it's still growing and going farther than the static matter. Another thing that we are usually obsessed, probably, is what's happening in the relation between indoor and outdoor. So for us, architecture for the last century, it's been too much artificial, too much hermetic, and it's losing some connections with the real climate conditions. So for us, this idea of being closer to the wild, to reality, to the real weather, it's something that it's always following our decisions. So we really believe that when you are closer to the real weather, maybe you are still inside an artificial environment, but close to the real weather. We really believe that in this kind of in-between spaces is when you really have your strongest architectural experiences. So we are really looking for that because it's our perception of being naked, close to to reality. And this idea of naked, it's very clear also in matter. So this is a house. It's a house in Sant Cugat. That is quite a rich area next to Barcelona. Maybe the house is not going to look like for rich people, but this is a really high-standing family. But they were very brave with us. They really follow us. So this house has the typical problem that even the plot is big enough. It has the typical division of a good garden in the south facade and something that it's sometimes lost in the north facade. So the project starts with this problem and how can we connect everything. So the idea is very basic. We have 3 volumes. These volumes are reproducing this idea of the space defined by the structure. The structure is going to have thermal mass. The thermal mass is going to regulate temperatures, so you are surrounded by something that helps you. And this is structural with a more domestic windows, doors, everything is more small and quiet. And in between, in between these pieces that you have the kitchen inside, this is the principal room and this is the kids. In between appears this kind of more open spaces that can be closed and open 100%. And then is when appears something like that it's very simple, but it's, for us, it's something that it's what we could connect with the Buena Vida of Ábalos, a place that you can really feel comfortable, and it's because it's connecting with these very primary conditions of climate. You are close to the real. In this case, everything is open, but this can be closed, and it's a kind of gallery catching the sun of the winter. But in Barcelona, you can be living like this for mostly half a year. So this is the living room, and you are living connected and connecting both sides of the garden and having this very well-being inside. So inside the boxes, you have this more domestic dimension, with more small windows, and everything is painted in white, even it's again with the bricks and with this very cheap horizontal structure. And this is the kitchen, that it's a little bit higher as a space, it still have this domestic meaning. And there you can see that it's something is happening with these bricks there that are not painted in white. And for us, this materiality and the light, the natural light, it's explaining that something happens there, and for us it's explaining that you are a little bit closer to the outdoor conditions. So the simple decision of painting or not painting, it's changing a lot the perception of the space, the feeling of this space, and you feel absolutely connected with the natural conditions outside. Obviously because it's open, but also the materiality, that it's just using the cheapest brick, the cheapest structure, and because it's naked, it's explaining some kind of colors, textures, other things that are happening here that are changing absolutely the perception. This is the other space. And from outside, it's a very basic construction. So this idea is understanding that usually when we are talking about architecture, we are usually talking about something that you can understand visually. Usually you are talking about solid matter, but we've been realizing, and I think that maybe the next lecture will also talk about that architecture is not only solid matter. There is a lot of invisible matter around us. This space is full of air, and this matter should be organized in order to provide this quality in the space. So for us, the discovery of the fluid matter as an important element to design, it was very important. And in this project, that was our first building, that is a research center for sustainability. We did our first big challenge on that. In fact, that was a competition, and because this is a research center on sustainability, they were asking for a real big challenge on sustainability. We decided that we didn't want to make just an efficient building. We wanted to translate the idea of sustainability to something that can be understood as a human experience, like a space decision that you can understand with your experience. And the main idea of this building, maybe you can see better here, is that we have this flexible and adaptable skin that it's exchanging with the sun radiation, the wind, the rain also, because when it's raining, it should be closed. So it's a kind of a sensible skin that it's producing inside a kind of I like to explain it as a spring forever, you know, because of this regulation and organization of the exchanges inside this very light skin. There is around 10 degrees better than outside, mostly all the year. Sometimes it's 5, but sometimes it's a little bit more. So it's a kind of forever spring. This facade can be absolutely closed or absolutely open. And inside, behind this skin, there's this typical drawing with architectural drawing with thermodynamics ideas, but in this case, this is working. So we have the skin that can be closed, catching sun radiation, can be open, producing interesting ventilations and convections. And this idea of exchanging that you can feel on the roof and the facade, it's also produced under the ground. You have like 10 meters underground of exchanging air with the soil. So there is a kind of process that the air is gaining some degrees going under the ground and with the retaining walls, and then it's going inside. And inside, there is around 50% of the volume of air that it's in this forever spring condition. So because the working spaces are surrounded by this spring, everything is easier then. You don't have to isolate a lot. Everything is getting, you are protected from the rain. Everything is easier. So finally, this is not so complicated. You can see here the real behavior during the 2 first years. The blue line, the dark blue line, it's the outdoor temperature. The orange line, it's the in-between space temperature. And then the red line, it's the comfort temperature in the spaces where the people is working. And the vertical blue lines is defining when the facade is open and when it's closed. And you can see that it's basically open, close in winter and open in summer. So it's very easy. Behind this there is domotics and a lot of sensible elements, but it's very easy. You close in winter, you open in summer. So that has the translation in architecture, and that was what it was interesting, really interesting for us. So that typology, it's again a reproduction of a kind of claustro, but with 4 patios that are not open. They are atrios because it's not raining inside. But you have these offices, and in between there is this amount of non-climatic areas where the people can be working. And finally you realize that the building is something like this, that this is winter, so the building is a compact volume, and this is summer, so where the air is crossing, all these volumes are dissipating heat because they are very hot activities inside. So finally, our important, what we were looking for is that it's this kind of a space that it's connecting this amount of air. So this air is organized with a nice temperature. You can be with any mechanical system. You can be working here mostly the 80% of the year. With this quality of natural light, and then you can be working if you want in your personal places. But the quality is this space that, because it's mostly open the half of the year, you have this really perception that this is outside because of the natural light, this quality, because the air is crossing, because sometimes I always explain that I have seen some butterflies crossing this space, so this is radical in terms of being outside. So these are the patios, the roof, that it's like an extra floor, and you have all these different dips and qualities of lights. The patio again. And inside there are labs and offices that they have his own climatic system, It's a really passive system, but when it's necessary, it's working and everybody is perfect in comfort. So the idea is that the building is able to explain, because of this in-between, is a large in-between space, is explaining the idea of the bioclimatics. Another personal approach related to matter is that we really feel that from these last years, everything is getting every time more industrialized. It should be not bad or good, but for us there is something that it's losing with the idea of the industrial products. We've been losing something of the specific condition that each project could have in each place. So for us, there is always the idea of how can we, even we are using something that comes from an industrial system, how we can stop the repetition and the mechanical perception of those materials, and how can we produce something that is specific for this building and for this place, trying to connect again with the real behavior of the building and this idea of these primary interactions, trying to connect with things that are absolutely there and are not in a factory that maybe is very far away from the site. So this is a house, again, in a quite interesting area with an interesting context, a little bit. This is a quite strange house because it's very large. It's connecting two different streets. One street is a little bit more pedestrian, and the other it's more for cars. So the big idea of the project was to create a long sequence of different qualities of space, different dimensions, different properties, different characters, different relation between inside and outside. So there is this first space that is a kind of patio, that is the entry. Then the kitchen and the living room, like an outdoor garden. This is a porch. This is a deeper patio. Then another room. And the garage, that is another big patio again. So you come with car and you go by walking here. And this is creating a lot of variety of heights and conditions on natural light and temperature. And finally, this sequence starts with this existing facade that was the only thing that we maintained. You come inside and you go to this first space, maybe the most important space. It's like the primordial space of the house, because it's when you enter and you start to understand what's going to happen. And here is where we tried to do this idea of humanizing matter. So even these bricks are industrial bricks. We're trying to use it in a different, organizing them in a different way, trying to connect them to something that goes farther than the idea of going fast or just producing walls. So the idea is connecting this space because of the proportions of the space that are really vertical, trying to connect with the idea of verticality, that it's joining the idea of natural light, the thermodynamic movement of the air, that it's always going up, and also the inverse movement, that it's gravity. So these bricks are going from the the more dense ones on the bottom to the lighter ones on the top. So it's connecting the structural behavior, organizing the layers of bricks. So from inside, it's again this strategic of what is painted in white, it's producing something a little bit more domestic. And then outside, because of the texture and the color and the natural light, you still have this kind of landscape, even it's inside the city. But the idea here was that this space is producing privacy. So you are just like 4 meters to the street, but you can be naked in your kitchen. Nobody is watching you. So that was another important thing. And this is the sequence. You go inside, then you go to the garden. And these are the bricks. The order is just upside down, so we start on the bottom with that it's a massive and thin brick, that it's the heaviest. But it's the heaviest because it's using a lot of mortar. The mortar is heaviest than the clay. So using the thin ones, you are using a lot of mortar, so it's the heaviest. So when you're going up, every time it's more perforated and higher, so less clay and less mortar. And this is combined with a kind of invention that it's this kind of horizontal elements that are producing beams with bricks, a kind of a post-tense beam with these screws and some steels in between the mortar. So this is producing this specific solution for this building. So in our understanding, this is creating a contextual answer of an industrial product. At the same time, it's connecting with something that it's about the human being. And for us, it's producing something that it's beautiful. So this is the porch. And the garage, that is again a kind of a bioclimatic patio. This roof can be open and closed. And this is the other street. Another interesting thing that we are working a lot recently, it's about the idea of transhistorical, how buildings and matter, it's crossing different periods of the history of architecture and the history of each plot and the history of each building. So there are a lot of buildings that are not finishing his life on each design process. So we are designing over other designs, and we know that our buildings are going to be redesigned by other architects. And the matter that is being used in these buildings is going to be reused. Maybe not all the matter, but it's going to be reused. So this idea of introducing time in construction and the introduction of history, it's every time we are more interested on these things, even when we are building new constructions or part of an existing, it's new. Even when it's new, we like the idea of producing something that it doesn't look like new, that it has this time, at least of the process of the construction, that it doesn't smell like new, that it looks like it was there before. So sometimes this is happening because the building, it was an existing building, like in this case. This is a very ancient building. It's a cooperativa of workers that it was transformed. It It was a building that it was not especially interesting inside. From outside, it has a quite interesting facade, but inside, originally, it was not super interesting, and it's been transformed a lot. It was different kinds of factories, a disco, tech. It was really a little bit destroyed inside, but it has some positive things and obviously a lot of matter there. It was full of matter. So the main idea of the project, because the building it has a 100% footprint, everything was built. So our idea was to produce a strategic demolition like that, producing a kind of indoor street that, on the other hand, was able to produce natural ventilation and providing natural light inside. So the project basically it's this very simple transformation. We have the existing, and then we introduce this new roof. It's a kind of bioclimatic roof that it's again surrounding the building with this spring forever. And that's the existing building when we found it, when we arrived there. And the main change, it's something like that, just a demolition that is introducing natural light and ventilation. And this idea of the demolition, it's going to be the important thing in all the project. We don't want to lose this idea of the demolition. These are the different sections with the complexity of the existence and what is the circulation, what is the bioclimatic space. And this is the main street that we produce inside, introducing this kind of extra elements for circulation, stairs and that, very light elements. But all the new matter that we introduce, we try to do it in continuity with the existence. We don't want to produce something that looks like different. We want this idea of transhistorical, adding new layers that are not against the existing. So, for example, here this is new, but it's a continuation of the old, but it's not really different from the existence. So, again, it's an amount of matter that it's combining the existing one. This is obviously transhistoric because it comes from the past. But this is new, so it's going to be also transhistoric because it's connected with the other, and it will be something in the future. So for us, maybe it's easy to understand what is new and what is old, but for the general people that don't understand so much as we, that we are architects, this is mostly the same thing. Inside there are some places to produce cultural activities. And it has this memory of what it used to be, but it's not about producing a kind of message. It's just using the matter that it was there and introducing things in continuity. This is an existing beam, and this is a new beam. You don't realize which is the new and which is the old. So that it's the idea of the transhistorical. So sometimes you find a building and you have to transform it. Sometimes you find something that cannot be easily transformed, but it has a strong context, and you have to reinvent a little bit the context. And in this case, the idea of the contextual matter, it's similar to the idea of how can we produce specific things that are establishing a good relation with the context. For example, it looks like an existing wall, but this is not an existing wall. This is a new wall, but it's a wall made with existing stones of an ancient wall that was in the same position. When we came to the plot, this is a house in a very beautiful village in close to Girona. It's Ullastret. All the village is like this, with these shapes and these very beautiful walls with the stones. And those ones were the ones that were making the fence of our plot. But you cannot believe, but the urban conditions were asking to demolish this wall to produce a new limit, having wider streets. A very stupid decision, but we should demolish this beautiful wall. So we keep all the stones. So the top one is the original wall, and we rebuilt this wall again in order to build the continuity with the existing condition of the streets. And the house is becoming a wall because we need to produce a really large house. So that it was able to produce a house inside, but we force the house to be a wall and to close and to have the continuity with the rest of the village. So the house is really large, extra large, and it's producing different rooms with a very opaque and dense wall on the street with a few windows and very open to the garden, like a U. So the sequence of these spaces is adapted to the geometry, and it's producing a kind of extensions of the wall where you have the bathrooms and all this stuff. So the radicality of the typology is that you have the living area there. You have to cross a porch to go to the rooms, and if you want to go to the last room, you have to cross the other rooms, like in a gallery, a corridor, and the beds are just inside the cave. So this is because we need a large house, and because this is a weekend house, so the client was a little bit radical on that. And we built this reusing the stones and using a kind of mortar, that it's a mortar made with lime, not with cement, mixing also a part of some earth from the place, and also using a kind of a recycled glass bubbles that are introducing isolation inside. So it's a massive wall, like in concrete, or probably close to rameter, because it's built with stacks of 20 centimeters. And depending, this is the mortar. It has this low conductivity condition, but it has a lot of inertia at the same time. And we can introduce stones inside depending on the situation of the building. For example, if we are outside, we want to reproduce something that is connected to the context, so we introduce stones on the outside of the facade. But inside, depending if we want to have more isolation or more thermal mass, more inertia, we introduce a lot of stones or no stones. So when there is no stones, the big walls are isolating. When there is a lot of stone, the walls are keeping and storaging energy. This is the process. It's this idea of building with layers. And from outside, we demolish the surface of the framework, and then appears the original stones inside. So you can see here that this is destroyed, but this is like the original. So surrounding the windows, there's still the finishing of the framework, like in the concrete. And from inside, this idea of the context is changing. We are not connected to the street, so this is really open. You can open 100%, and the house is a full large porch adapted to the topography, with this idea of the rooms that are looking to the sun and to the views. And inside, the concrete, it's more looking like concrete, but with lime, so it's a different color. It's not so gray, and it's done by layers. And it's really producing, again, a very nice quality and a really good feeling of being in between inside and outside. So this is the corridor of the rooms. This is me and some people from the office having lunch here. It's testing that the house it's working. Again, the corridor of the rooms, and you can see here this kind of invention. So these are rooms for kids. They have 3 kids, so they can use different parts of these rooms, but at the same time it's designed to have a big room for a guest family, so you can come, they have a lot of friends, you can come with a couple and 2 kids, they can live in one of those spaces, it's like 4 square meters for a family, but it works because it's for a weekend, like that. And this is the principal room, that it's also like in a cave. And from outside you have this geometry and this texture, that it's really strong, and it's connecting with the existence. That right now this is still very white because it's lime, like that it used to be also joined by lime, so with the time this is going to be more dark. And the last project is related to this idea of how can we connect matter to the behavior, how can we organize things, and the idea is how buildings can be organized by themselves. So the idea of does itself is how can we avoid these mechanical systems that are really producing artificial conditions, and how can design something that the building by itself is able to organize all this behavior. So this is another existing building that we rebuilt. It's also, again, it's also the condition of the facade, because all the building was demolished, but we wanted to produce a continuity again, like a transhistorical. We only keep the facade, but as a structural system, we decide to build all the new parts following the idea of the bricks and the structural walls. So because that was a kind of it used to be a factory of glass production, we mix bricks with these glass bricks. This is just this kind of memory things that are not important, but it's just something else that is producing this kind of holes in the walls. But the idea, the principal idea is that the building is growing and using the existing wall as a structural wall. So over that, this is carrying the weight over that it's working again as a structural wall. And here you can start to realize that apart from all these strategies that are connected to other things that I have explained, here appears these objects that are something strange. This is the other side. And these objects are the innovation that we did in this building. This building, it's the use of this building is it has a lot of classrooms for adults. So there are small rooms with a lot of people, adult people. So it means dirty air, bad smell, and a lot of internal heat. So people it's producing internal heat. So this is more or less helping in winter, but in summer in Barcelona, this is a problem. So the main idea of these chimneys is to make a redesign of a solar chimney. So if our problem is how can we move air to create ventilation, to renovate the indoor air without a mechanical system, if we want to do it naturally, we have a contradiction. When we need the most, the highest dissipation, it's when it's hotter and when we have a lot of sun. So finally, we found this coincidence, and we discovered that the sun can produce a natural engine. So when we need to ventilate a lot, we have a lot of sun. So a solar chimney, it's a very simple process. It's like a transparent layer with a black layer inside. The sun is coming here. This is getting around 80 degrees. So because it's really hot, it wants to go up. And when it's going up, it's sucking the air inside. So with this very basic process, the building is able to remove like 10 times per hour the volume of the building in summer. And because of these geometries, this is designed to be adapted by himself during the year. So because of the direction of the sun in winter and in summer, it's different. We produce a low renovation in winter because we don't want to dissipate heat, just like the quality, like the smell and all this. But in summer, the sun is more vertical, and then it's working stronger, and it's moving more air. So it's a kind of strange building because it's an open building. So the air is floating all the time. This is working because it has a lot of thermal mass. It's very massive here. But this is moving slowly or faster, the air inside. So the air, it comes from these patios. It goes from underground again, go to the patio. This is a bioclimatic. It's earning some degrees, then goes inside and whoop, out. Like this. So this is the patios in one facade, producing this element that it's not for people, it's just a kind of double facade that it's catching this bioclimatic air. This is a classroom. These windows can be opened automatically. This is the patio on the north side, that it's the entry. It's this vertical space. And you come inside the building crossing this patio. And on the top you have this element that it's, again, like in the beginning, this elemental thing that it's a roof that becomes something else and becomes fundamental because it's moving the air of the building. It's not only protecting from the rain, it's something else. These are a simulation and all that. And this is finally the idea. Very stabilized building because it's very massive, and something that it's organizing and moving by himself without engines and difficult, some kind of difficult control elements, very basic, moving the air. Sorry. This is from far distance, and that's all. Thank you.
Sí.
¿Aquí?
Yeah, sí. So, well, sorry for being sad, but I have problems with my shoulder today, so I will be sad. Beyond Thermodynamic Materialism is a terrible title. I know it, I hate it, but I like it with a question mark. And in fact, we were trying to obviously we're talking about matter in this invitation of Carles Murom. For us was almost needed to talk about thermodynamics, and very much in the same mood than Arc, no? and Roger, etc. But in somehow we didn't want to go too obvious, and in fact we have one thing that can be important academically to teach students cannot be so important in real practice, in design. There are many other things that are interesting and active while you design. And then, so we were thinking about how much in our practice we've been insisting for a period of time in thermodynamics, and it's going into other things, no? Which has not a name, obviously, but has a question mark. It's not against, it's just the same thing, no? But it's been in many ways enriched with other substances. I don't know which one is the...
¿Puedes colaborar con este?
Okay, thank you. And this is one of, I mean, going back in time, this is another thing that has always been present in our practice, and we are going to show you, we are going to divide it in two parts. I will explain it very quickly. But I think that this is the best manifesto. And it's the best, I mean, you don't need to read the book, you don't need to know any other thing about Le Corbusier. Just with this, you know what he was thinking about and how much he was trying to connect and disconnect among technology and history, both things, and how the revolution, because it was a real revolution, he introduced it with other colleagues, obviously, but he was the smartest. No? He was the one that really understood the complexities of the discipline in relationship with technology, or what differentiates us from other people that uses technologies. No? And we always say that the best part of this is the Spanish version, the Summa, a long time ago. But the best part is the written part, you know, which is in between. It's just tempted by the temples and by the cars. And somehow a good way to express what we see in this page is to say that all the, let's say, the culture that we have heard in the 20th century modernism somehow has made many beautiful pieces, but those that are remarkable, those that really inspire still nowadays everyone, are those that are exactly in the middle. So if you go a little bit up, then all the postmodernist period somehow is becoming, I don't know. If you go to the lower part, the high tech is becoming now like old-fashioned. No, it's like so just a moment in time. No, just some kind of fashion. So I think that this tension is quite interesting to learn from Le Corbusier still nowadays. No? These are the triangles that Roger has brought but not shown, and we have brought, and we will show a little bit. They are, I mean, the author is Stefan Belin, a wonderful, engineer that knows 10 times more than us about technology, thermodynamics, and whatever. But he made these beautiful triangles in the upper part that were for many years very well known and discussed, that it somehow was interesting, but we were completely against this, because I think it was representing the let's say, the high-tech generation. The idea that to resolve problems of performance and thermodynamics, there was a kind of the triangle of the future was, let's say, based in technology, while for us it was completely wrong. No? And for us, there's the past, there's the period of the 20th century of modernism, and there is a present that has reverse, and effectively, after seeing what the technologies brought by the modernists including air conditioning, etc., we think that we have the knowledge, we have the culture, we have the materials and the attitude and the social support to change this model of technology and to come back to a kind of hybrid among what we can learn from history and occasionally, if you have very bad conditions, for whatever reason, we can use more, let's say, sophisticated technologies. No? But and this for us was moved to other manifesto with letters in the middle. We always show the clues where we copy, and we always copy the best. But so first, in the upper part, we have the machines, the thermodynamic machines. In the lower, we have the history. And we don't pretend they are exactly performing in the same way, but somehow every substantial moment in history of architecture has a kind of performance in relationship with the material culture, what you have at hand, and the let's say the climatic conditions. And this is an amazing way to think about matter, even if it's not the only one. No? But for us, this idea of material culture, which is more sophisticated than matter. Material culture is a concept that comes from archaeologists. How can they reconstruct a civilization with just some rest of very, very few things, no? A bone, a little brick or whatever, a vase or things like that. And they are able to see how these people lived their everyday lives with extreme precision, which is a demonstration that materialism is important. And materialism is real, it's not a kind of ideology. And well, anyway, more about this. So we will divide our talk we will show a series of projects, not too many, and those that are in a row are practically the same, so you will see it. But we will talk about three types, and how have we been dealing with the three types, the cube, the courtyard, or just the shed, let's say the box, in recent times. And I just finish this and give you.
I can follow.
Go ahead.
Change. Is it here okay? Or I should move?
Can you?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
You can go. Yeah. You can stand if you prefer.
Yeah. Okay. So I will start. It's not. It should be here, no? Yeah. Are you sure it's not enough? This? I can stand up. It's more comfortable. Okay, so I will start with the first type, which is a courtyard. Here you have three types. They have very different scales, different programs, but what's important, they have very different climates. So first one, it's a Zhuhai Contemporary Art Museum. The project that was a competition. First of all, what we start to look when we begin a project, it's to understand what kind of climate we are dealing with. But maybe before, I would like to say that the place of the competition, it's very, it's incredible place. It's in the border, in the south of China, in the frontier with Macau, Zhuhai in Macau, in front of the bay, and also just in front of the site was planned the bridge that connects Zhuhai to Hong Kong. The bridge, which is already constructed, 60 kilometers long, the largest bridge in the world. No? So the place was incredible. And again, coming back to the climate, Zhuhai, it's a humid, subtropical. So this was a first base when we start the project. This is how it looks like, but I would like to explain it from the beginning. Subtropical, hot climates. You see the scheme on the right upper part. There are some variations over temperature, but still it's inside of human comfort. This is one important thing. And the second thing, this floor plan and the section show the parking project that was included in the brief of competition. So we should respect it. So we had these 3 floors of concrete structure going under the ground that fulfill completely all the site. So first idea, okay, why we do not use it? So we start to think that our project should be extrusion of this concrete construction. I don't know if there's a water here. Sorry. Much better. So that our project should get approach of this construction of concrete and take it to the layer over the ground. So in reality, when we design this building, it was not so much as trying to define the volumes, but much more trying to extrude, to cut out the volume from this thermal mass. So we are in a subtropical climate, as I said. The most important thing is humidity. This is our biggest problem. So first thing what we are doing is to cut the inner courtyard. Now, these are the schemes in the upper part. We cut the inner courtyard to get thinner or less deep buildings, so we can use natural cross ventilation. Second operation, we start to deform the roof in form of waves. So during the day, when we have sun radiation, the sun dry the material on the roof and take out all humidity. And during the night, the same roof, through radiative cooling, it's getting out, it's radiate all the heat to the sky, so the building kind of restart along of the night and bring cold again in the morning. The third scheme, it's a thermal mass that we extrude and continue. And the last one, we start to make small openings in the concrete mass just to get cross ventilation, but not to get direct radiation, because we are talking about museum. We do not want direct sun radiation inside of the building. Once we made this operation that I showed before, we have two new kind of spaces, two new exterior spaces. One, it's a roof. This wave roof become amphitheaters, become the observatory of the city, and the inner courtyard become new space for the exhibition. So next step that we start to work with, this outside courtyard should be need kind of cover to protect from the sun and to protect from the rain. So these are the first schemes how we start to design these kind of umbrellas for the courtyard, and they start to create this spatial unit between the amphitheaters and the umbrellas. This is an inspiration for us was the dragon tree, that what has very different from other trees, that it does not get the water from the ground, but it's taken from the dew, from the air. So all this kind of geometry, very precise geometry that you can see up, we start to study and we want to mimic it, to think that we can, a part of protect from the water and from sun radiation, we can also recollect this water. No? And once we recollect the water and we have these complex branches, we think we can use it also to control the air in this courtyard. So here there are two schemes how this system of control of the air would work. This is a downdraft and updraft. So what happened? We had the tree, and during the night the tree is getting cold, and slowly from the umbrella it's cold. It's cooling the air, and the air it's start to fall down through all the branches. Because of the convection, cold air, it's going down. Also, in the very early morning, when sun starts to rise, the dew that is on the umbrella starts to evaporate and takes the energy from the air. So again, the air is going down. So all the morning, from the morning in the courtyard, you have fresh, cold air coming from up. And after, in the afternoon, in one moment, change the system, start updraft. During the day, the radiation, sun radiation hit the mass of a tree, and the tree in one moment start to be enough hot and move, the hot air start to go up, rise to the sky. So in the afternoon, all the hot air from the courtyard, it's taken upstairs, no? Through the tree. Okay, very maybe complex system, but these trees start to become like a heart of the project, and this geometry we start to study need to be very precise. No? You see the opening in the down part because of the flow of the air from up and opposite from up to down and from down to up. So the geometry, the form of the tree was very precise. In each section, always we need the same surface. No? We have like one trunk, and after it's going like to, sorry, I'm going too fast, yeah. After it going to small branches, but on each level, the section of the air have to be the same, so the air is going smoothly. No? So geometry, form, it's very important. No? It's also very important that we have very high surface area in relation to volume ratio. So the tree is working like kind of heat exchanger. Matter. We define the matter like stainless steel. What it means that it's the most dense and also it's less conductive. So even it's steel, it's working like thermal mass. So it stores the heat and it gives a delay because we want to work with the day cycle, with 24-hour cycle. Yeah. The tree, it's constructed through 5 elements. The umbrella recollects the water, and this is a system that through branches it's getting to the underground tank, and this water is reused in the building. No, this is like already construction detail drawings of water system and lower part of a tree. And the drawings of the section, all the systems with the trees, and finally some images. The roof, the observatory, this is a view to Bacau, and the inner space covered by this umbrella, which are devices that define this climate inside of a courtyard and maintain the comfortable climate even it's in the exterior. And the last image, the facade, this kind of new character, iconic character, I would say, that gives visibility to a museum, but also this is a facade. This is a first image that somebody see when it's coming from the Hong Kong through the bridge. This is a first view. And some photos from construction sites. It's a huge construction in the ground, underground. Now it starts to go slowly over the level. And we pass to the second group or second type, what we call the cube. Soriguer Foundation. We are in Spain, in Balaguer, and it's a site with gravel pits that it's a family business that start with gravel pits. After they start to introduce another element, like we need to reconstruct the ground that they are cutting because of the gravel. So they start to plant the trees, they plant the olives, they start to produce olive oil, one after another, and start to become like complex economy, circle economy, that at the end introduce another element that was art collection. The art collection that here is defined in relation with the human body and the matter. I will not go deeper, but this is a situation, let's say, when we start to work with this building in the gravel pit for this art building, no? Foundation building. Again, we are going to the first understanding of the climate. No? Before climate was humid and hot, here we are in cold and in steppe. So completely different climate, dry and cold. the problems that we have are very different than before one. Here, yes, we have a problem with the temperature. This is a scheme that shows changes of the temperature along of the year. So it's going very low, almost to 0 degrees, and it's going over 30 degrees. The yellow line, it's a human comfort. So the exterior climate is kind of far from human comfort. But the black line, it's a temperature of the ground. It's much near. So this scheme was like the first origin for the project. When we observed these data, the first answer or first idea that we start to think about that we need stability. Against the instability in the exterior, we need to construct through architecture the stability in the interior. So first idea or first decision was that the building should be compact. It should be as much similar to the cube as possible. Second decision, that should be related with the ground. So we can use this stability of the ground for the building. And these are the first sketches, the cube inside of the ground, anchored to the ground. And the next, what we start to think, we start to deform the roof. This is a scheme in the upper part. Because of the orientation, to the north we want to close it completely, and we want to open it, close completely from the south, from direct radiation, and completely open in the north when we can get natural light for the exhibition, but we do not have never the direct radiation. So we need this north natural light. So we turn the building 45 degrees, and we extend these cuts in the roof to the facades. But what we are talking about the stability, and we are talking about thermal mass, what we need in this building. And this is the scheme, how it works. I will explain it further, but here what I want to explain, that when we talk about the thermal mass, it's not exactly that we talk about the facade. In reality, facade, it's not such important. It's a less important part. When we need a thermal mass, when we look for stability, we need to construct through this thermal mass the skeleton, the inner part. So the structure of this building, we define through slabs and through walls. And both of them create the skeleton that maintain a stability of the temperature. This psychometric scheme that we use a lot to understand the climate, probably you know it from, if most of you are architects from the school, but I will explain it shortly. It shows the climate of the place, put in relation the humidity, vertical line, the temperature, horizontal line, and each point, it's a 1 day of the year. The blue rectangular, it's a comfort zone for human body. And here we have 4 schemes. We start from winter, below summer, and to the right, spring and autumn. This is a climate of the place in Balaguer, just exterior climate. And this is a study of the climate inside of the building. So we see very fastly that all the points are getting together, so we have a stability. And also in spring and in autumn, we are inside of the comfort. We have some problem in winter and summer, but the more than the half of the year, we are inside of a human comfort. This scheme, it's made just through the architecture. There are not any systems, it's just the form and the matter that define the project. In this moment, we start to work with this thermal mass, and this thermal mass we start to perforate, thinking that we need to condition it somehow. So we use Canadian wells that recollect the air from the outside and put it through all these perforations that exist in the slabs and in the walls, and they continue through all the building. This gives us this reaction, let's say, and in the summer also we are inside of the comfort. We still have a problem with winter because the ground has around 14 degrees, so we could say this building could work as an exhibition if you go with light coat or jacket, and still it can work through all the year. If you would get to would like to go to further comfort, you would need to introduce the radiant floor, what we propose, and other tubes, in this case with water, that bring the hot water and radiate from down to heat the human bodies. And these are the systems, how this air is introduced to the inside, depend on the height of the space. I will not go further in this. And the architecture, how it's constructed. No? It's just a concrete box with the walls that organize continuous space. This is the exhibition space, but this prototype, if we think about it, it can be adapted to different programs. No? This is the underground space, some inner ground floor, exhibition floor, and finally the last floor, which is completely open space. This is a space for events, and also has much more natural light coming from up, but also can have additionally ventilation through convection when we have events with a lot of people. This is just architecture plans, coming again, the event space, the exhibition, and the video, which is in the underground. All these floors are cutted through one vertical element, which is the void that move the air in vertical through convection, move the people and the air. We use it for the stairs, for communication, but also to restart the building, to take all the hot water that during the night can go through the openings in the roof to the outside. And to finish, just last images. In the place, the building that is constructed through the concrete, we are in the gravel pit, so it's the material that it's made on site, that it's made with the sound that it's on site, so it become with the colors mimic with the surrounding landscape. And it became part of all these systems and elements of other construction, other industrial construction of the sites, on the site. I will pass to Iñaki, follow?
Very happy. Yeah, and then, okay, and then we go to a phrase of Carles Muro in the letter that he explained what matter would be for these lectures. He ends up a phrase saying, it's not only about matter, it's about the materialization of design processes. I think it's literal. And it was exactly, I mean, when I read that, it was exactly the same thing I really wanted to talk about. And this is a list of projects that are being made a long time, for many years, almost decades, a couple of decades or so. And they have produced several buildings and are producing now a couple of them, but I want to talk about it. And we call it the Mora communal prototype. And it begins in this sketch that is super obvious, which is a house made in a sketch for a good friend of us that was a pity because she was an art collector and she was very much involved in the artist scene, but she got sick and couldn't, I mean, well, this story is sad, but anyway, I mean, this was in the south of Spain, in a cork forest, a beautiful one in Cádiz, and well, yeah, and this was the project itself, I mean, which is somehow has some resonance with what we've seen before with Roger. It's about an invention. We didn't want to go for double heights and that have a lot of sun and you need sunglasses in the interior spaces. Or we didn't go to a bourgeois building with corridors and rooms and every room for one thing or the other. So we create this kind of partiture, this kind of scheme that is super simple and can be used in somehow in very different ways, and that can be constructed as in fact, we call it the Shanti Palace, because it was, somehow was made with very thin bricks, the thinner that we could use, and polycarbonate, and that's it. I mean, an industrial roof. And the whole idea is that the volume of air and the cross ventilation could make a lot of work in these conditions. And this is what it is. I mean, it almost doesn't have, let's say, design. The funny thing is that the rooms have a variety of positions, a variety of some of them are external, some of them are internal, some of them are higher, some of them are lower, and some of them are full of water, but it's completely arbitrarian. As I say, we had a lot of variations and all of them could work. Every room had a specific furniture, and this was the only thing giving character to the Shanti Palace. So this idea that we were really frustrated for a couple of years till we got another opportunity in Valencia, in Spain, Valencia, in a let's say an event organized by Vicente Guallart called Sociopolis that was not quite successful, I have to say, to trying to make it possible to co-live, so to say, the farming, the land of the farming in the south of Valencia with a new development site. And he invited Greg Lynn, invited all these guys that really made their monsters there without knowing anything about this place and couldn't success. But we were the only ones producing an idea that could have been interesting somehow, which is to combine in this very special land of transition between the urban and the let's say the purely agricultural, two communes that are completely different. One is this is the red dot south of the port of Valencia, and very close to La Albufera, in a very interesting place, I have to say. Our proposal was to create two communes. One was a communa for young people, and the other was a communa for old people. And it's very simple. There is a kind of synergy that can be created. The communa for the young people was surrounded by farming, and they were surviving through selling their products. The other was more, I mean, they could service as to support, I don't know, the kids during the day, etc., other things, and they could really enjoy having a kind of more interesting life than just being completely inactive in a place isolated. No, I mean the elderly people comuna. No? And then there was a kind of interesting gardening made by Teresa Galí that could combine both the needs of one and the other. I mean, it was a serious work, and that produced this kind of two volumes that have a distance, and they can be separated completely, but they can be joined, for example, on Sundays or weekends, and the rest of the week they are not. I mean, the whole idea of not segregating and including, let's say, marginal segments of the society with a kind of solution that is absolutely flexible. What we were discovering is that this scheme was not at all related with any specific function, that could really work with everything that was not a family, a conventional family, so to say. So we began to believe more and more in it, and to well, these are the facades and the schemes, because they have day center, they have other things. I mean, there's not that. I mean, the program was made with sociologists that worked hard to create realistic programs, to combine dimensions. So it was not as simple as I'm trying to explain, but I don't want to bore you with facts. And we were able to produce in a moment a kind of prototype that was super simple. It was made in 2 weeks. But the whole story of Sociopolis was a disaster, because there were a kind of political disaster in the city, and the whole thing was destroyed. But we finally made a tower for social housing. Anyway, this is the end of this two communes story. And then our stubbornness, because I think this is a real quality for an architect, to be stubborn, to stay attached to the ideas for decades, not just years, decades, gave us the opportunity to present the same idea for a competition, for a leisure center, for the elderly in origin, and then it has become the leisure center for the whole village of Azuqueca de Henares, close to Madrid, which is a kind of linear city full of warehouses that connect commercially Barcelona and Madrid. So it's a place where all the goods that have to stay close to the city of Madrid come and rest before they are introduced into the city. And in this neighborhood that had a lot of social problems, I mean, these are the deep years of the economic crisis in Spain. 35% of 50% of the people without jobs, 35% of the people immigrants. So it was really a kind of very complex situation that gave way to the idea of putting in the center of the old village something called leisure center without any program. You had to invent the program. So for us, it was an opportunity to rescue the ideas that we were dealing with before, and you can see it. I mean, it's a kind of labyrinth of rooms with a kind of more sophisticated organization. There are some that are more open, others that are bigger, but with the patios are very similar. And in general terms, the whole idea of a casino or a leisure center is to put many rooms together with different, let's say, formats or positions. No? In our case, was more about positions than about formats. And then you have the south down, the north up, and the activities that were more relaxed and needed more to be more heated in the south, and vice versa in the north. No? So the program was organized. We thought it was a kind of generic organization that wouldn't be respected. It has been literally respected, and it works. And also we have the rooms outside. No? We have all these kind of, let's say, resources to create, to expand the comfort outdoor. That in Azuqueca is close to 7 months a year. It's a wonderful place to live in because of the climate conditions. So we wanted to expand it for as far as possible. Well, I'm not going to explain this. And this is the whole idea was to create a warehouse. So to construct, I mean, it's the city with more warehouses of the whole area of Madrid. So we said, I mean, it can be built with literally with the same, let's say, systems, which are cheap and are everywhere, but introducing some kind of quality. And well, they have the tower with the offices, and then you have a kind of basement and a very small basement, and to create some kind of ventilation. And then what else? I mean, you have the green roof. Green roofs are splendid. I mean, mostly all of you can know that green roofs are splendid in these climates. Not in the north, not in Oporto, and in the north of Spain. It's better the other part, south, when you have dry summers, really dry summers. So you can the green stuff and the earth don't have that water, and they are really isolating the roof. No, anyway, so we were doing this kind of very simple tools that everyone knows, but they seem to be forbidden in architecture nowadays, and they are the best things that we can use, the cheapest, and patios and with beautiful trees and interiors that are, you can see, they are exactly the same. I mean, industries, the same patents. I mean, everything was literally brought from warehouses industry, but just with the only sophistication was to divide into the 4 meters, 80 centimeters height with a line in the middle, and then playing with what is up and what is down in almost a kind of, in such simple way, like having a wood panel of 1 millimeter width, or a gray and a white, or a gray and the wood panel up, etc. So just with variations, we were creating different conditions depending on the amount of light or the position or the character we wanted for them. And this is the main room, almost floating in the air. I mean, it has almost nothing. And the people there, I mean, this is the place where they read, the place where they gossip, the place where they play, the place where they drink or stay and have lunch. And all these environments are quite, I mean, active. And the funny thing is that obviously for legal issues we had to include air conditioning systems. Probably you have seen that we had in the ground floor a raised floor. The machinery is there and it has never been used because there is no need. And this is the cheapest green roof ever made. An invention of Renata of putting all the sedum plants one after the other in lines, in rows, to create something that is obviously is destroyed by time, but it was so funny to do it. I mean, it was so beautiful, and this is, I mean, what you see, everything that you see here is at the same time structural. The fenestration of the windows, I mean, is like almost immaterial, so to say. But at the same time, it's very active and very simple. No? So it was the first materialization of as I was saying, of what, and we are now beginning this agricultural comuna, and in, well, let's say comuna is a kind of comuna for rich people, I have to say. I mean, but it's the future. So it's a beautiful place in Llucmajor, and you see the rectangle up there in red, and then it's the combination of several plots, and there is a forest, there is an area with the grid with trees that are like, I don't know how to say algarrobos, I don't know, but anyway, fruit trees.
Productive trees.
The productive trees, and this is what we were just in the point where all the systems, the ecosystems, the forest, the one land, the other land collide. We were having two volumes, one more dedicated to let's say the production stuff, the other more residential, and it's again south. Is down and north is up. The north is with the bedrooms, but the bedrooms have the beautiful views on the forest, while the living areas face the south, but also escape to be frontal and try to obtain views from the sunset, also from the swimming pool, the natural swimming pool, etc., etc. And well, I'm not going to explain. This is the image. So, all of them have, both volumes have pitched roofs because it's mandatory. But somehow the house tries to hide this kind of thing. The other doesn't try. I mean, there's no need to hide anything. But the house wants to be something more, something that confronts more literally with the sun path. And yeah, you see the difference of areas in one and the other, and well, there are many mechanisms that are being in this moment, let's say, precise, and we have begun it, but probably we will be able to construct it with 3D prefabricated systems, even if it is a little bit sophisticated. Let's say the volumes that are, the inner volumes are all very, very easy to construct in three-dimensional prefabrication systems. And then the last one is a co-living that is a funny construction. I mean, that took a lot of time because it was let's say, a special family in the Basque Country that had a caserío, the traditional house of the Basque Country completely destroyed by time and a bad use of it. I mean, it was, well, the climate is much more similar to what you have here, by the way. And it's close to the, this is the yellow circle, it's close to the Cantabrico and to Deva, a beautiful place in any way, but you have views over the sea. You can see the coast of France. You can see a good day Biarritz in the coast. So it's a beautiful place to have a house. And the thing is, let me explain it. The house is like this. It's a house for different members of the family. In the ground, the mother, obviously, they don't. I mean, their father passed away a long time ago. So, and this is probably what has kept them very, very united. And the mother is with an aunt living in the ground floor. In the first floor is one of the brothers that has a family and is a fireman, and is also the one that deals with the farming of the lands they have in this village. The other is an economist in the second floor, and a professor, and has a couple, but they are thinking about having a family, but they don't have it still. And then in the top there's an artist, a well-known, Ivonne Aranberri, very well-known in Spain and in Europe, that didn't want they wanted to live like, let's say, eremit, with a small house and a small studio, but with the best views. So you remember those eremites that went up to the column and lived 40 years up on the column, something like that. No? And well, and this is the organization. Is a bar. I mean, in this case we couldn't go flat because it was forbidden. I mean, we had to go to this. I mean, and the views were also the main thing that you could extract from the site. No? So it's a vertical organization, and then these are the images. But the funny thing is that the economist and the fireman and farmer and the artist created a society, and they built by themselves the whole building, and the artist was the one that had the dialogue, the aesthetic dialogue with us. The economists obviously had the tough dialogues, economic, but not only with us, but with all the subcontractors that were for there. And the fireman was the one that got the license to be a constructor and founded a company. And then we had problems with the license, and he became part of the municipality in an election. It was a kind of film. I mean, they were getting everything together, and they were united as a rock till the last minute. I mean, it was a fantastic pleasure for us to relate with them. And the house is simple, but at the same time is sophisticated in the interiors, depending on. I mean, it's just naked architecture. With some details. I mean, it seems to be a little bit sophisticated, but it was one of the cheapest ways to do it. And in terms of surface, it was the one that occupied, the stairs that occupied with the elevator less than of all that we could try. So it's quite interesting to see the stairs in terms of economy of space and economy of means instead of just beauty, no? And this is the studio. This is the studio. The house is the other one. This is the studio of the artist, and this is the view in the farm. And it's a house that is exactly the edge in between let's say the village and a huge area with as much industrial containers as the other project that we have shown in Azuqueca. No, so it's a kind of, for us, the materiality of this building had to be a kind of combining, let's say, some kind of rests of local architecture, like the pitch roof, with a materiality and construction systems that could really show the time and the economy that these people had to confront in order to really create this. And so I wanted to bring, we wanted to bring this because it somehow it's also about the materiality of the processes of the work of an architect, which is different than the materiality that you can touch. It's about the persistence and the stubbornness of the architect and the opportunity of some ideas and to detect let's say, the field of opportunity of the cube or the shed or the courtyard, and try to work with them, let's say, with new languages and with new ideas. That's it. Thank you. Thank you so much. What do we do now?
Okay, we shall keep in English. I know it's very late, so people are leaving. We'll keep it very short. But just in case someone really wants to ask some questions or make some comments quickly, I think it's a privilege to have Roger, Renata, and Iñaki. So I wouldn't like to miss giving the opportunity to them. While we warm up, because it's always taking a while, I made lots of notes actually today from your talks. And I was thinking about this invisible materiality, this invisible matter that Roger was talking about, and many things. But actually, all of a sudden, I'd like to completely change the topic, because I thought that, for me, it was very interesting. Also, we tend to have more students than anything else. And I would like to go to your concept of stubbornness. Actually, I think that's no, because I think I sincerely think it's something that. It's incredibly important for any serious artistic production. I mean, the ability to persist. I mean, I remember this. That would be almost a personal thing. I'll try to make it in a different way. There's this person actually that was told, my daughter is very stubborn, and they just said, no, she's not stubborn. She's persistent, she has tenacity, and all of a sudden you transform something apparently negative into quality, into a positive thing. And I really think that all writers, all artists, whatever, have always been writing the same book, the ones that you really appreciate in a sense. And I think that most of the interesting artistic lives have been variations on a theme. So I think it's very important to see how you can persist. I mean, there's two things. One is your stubbornness in the sense, I'm not going to renounce this, and also that requires also an incredible tenacity to resist in contemporary world, particularly in our profession. But also there's this other part of the persistence of ideas. And I think, for instance, and I have to say, Iñaki, I'll start with that having said that, which I think it would generate a wider conversation also in terms of ethics and pedagogy and whatever, but I have to say that the more I look at the Azuqueca Denares building, the more I like it. And there's lots of things, because there's this underlying grit, in a sense, that supports these ideas. But at the same time, there's a straightforward beauty and a straightforward sense of place, which is very strong. And I wanted to say something that perhaps it's also perhaps I'm mixing too many things, the thing of stubbornness or whatever, but that most of your buildings, I have this funny feeling that I wonder how do you address, if you address at all the notion of character of the building, because I think, for instance, that Azuqueca has incredible domestic quality, and it's a public building, while some of the one-family houses that you have designed have an incredible, almost industrial quality. And I don't know whether it's something that happens, something that you really, it has to do with a chain of decisions that actually lead to that, or what? I'm sorry, perhaps I'm mixing two things, but I think this stubbornness, it's a, I don't know whether that's an interesting question for you, but...
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, I remember a brutal discussion with Greg Lynn at the AA about... But we had a lot of drinks after that, so he's a nice guy. But about this, my use of the word character, because he was discussing about the universal paradigm of parametricism a long time ago, 20 years or so ago. And I was defending that it had a limited field in architecture. And I said, literally, defending the Foreign Office project, I said, this is a perfect program for flows to really use a fluid geometry. So, but it doesn't have anything to do with social housing, with many other activities. He was super angry because I said, it's the character of the program, what gives you let's say, the language. And he was completely opposite. I mean, I don't think he's opposite now. I mean, he's not so stubborn as I am. And but I think that character is a kind of very picturesque name, a word used from a moment on by architects that changed completely the way language was understood and is still active. I mean, probably secretly, but so the whole idea that a palace of justice has to be severe, a kind of a place of weddings has to be happy, transmit a sensation of happiness or whatever, and then has more colorful, the other is more tectonic, and a prison has to be horrible. Even when Richardson make a prison, it's so beautiful, it's so horrible and so beautiful at the same time that this is character, exactly. No? But I think that it's in everyone. I mean, it's a kind of thing that has been infiltrated by the 18th, 19th century into every architect, mostly. And the only thing with character, the only problem with character is to being able to manage to understand why character is active, still in our culture, and how much do you want to activate it, in which moment, and for what reason. So instead of being a category that is floating without your knowledge in your, let's say, everyday activity, if you control it and you manipulate it, then it becomes something much more positive. This is my position with it.
If you want to add something, Roger, or otherwise we'll see if there's any. Would you like to? Okay. No, just to give you the chance. No, are there any questions? Alguma pergunta na sala? Alguma questão? No? No, I would have many. I don't know whether to really go on or just because I think it's people are tired and it's late. Or shall we have some? You want to say some final words, Roger, or no? Or something about your own feeling of character?
No, I think the description it's been perfect. And for me, the idea of character, it's very important. You can have this more analogic idea of character, like Louis Kahn explaining what an institution should be, or what a wedding building, if it should be funny, and you can also have other definition, maybe more connected to the characterization in terms of other qualities that are not so connected to the meanings, but connecting with what's happening there in terms of other perceptions and process that you feel when you are in a space that maybe don't have words to be explained, but it could be also connected to what Zumthor explained as presence or something like that. But I think that all this is connected with the idea of character. So for me, buildings should have something like that.
Yeah, I think, let me say, I don't want to bore anyone more, but I think it has, in your work, in our work, like the one that has explained in Sorige pit, relates very much the notion of character with the materiality that is present, the presence and how the presence is driven by materiality. In Estas, for example, is a clear example. So, and for us, exactly with Sorige. So it's like using the tools and the colors and the palette, and obviously they have gravel means concrete is a must, etc., etc. So I think that is another way that is more performative and less aesthetic, so to say.
Okay, just once again, if there's no more questions, thank you Iñaki, Renata, Roger, and thank you all for staying until late, and we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you so much. Good night.